I wanted to just address first the question that we did receive, because I think we have a lot of material to talk about, but I want to make sure that this gets covered. So we got two questions which are kind of similar. How are companies best able to place ISI to enable brands to disseminate their branded messages to HCPs via mobile technology? Obviously, without making the channel useless, i.e. ISI being the very first thing the HCP sees. So do you guys have any thoughts on that? I mean, again, I'm a big proponent of the one-click rule. So, you know, again, if that link is available to you through the mobile technology and you can get there, I personally think from a legal and compliance perspective that that's okay. But
wow,
from a marketing
you're a rebel, aren't you?
I know. I'm going to get myself in big trouble.
These do not represent necessarily the views of your company.
Exactly. These do not
I'll
represent
do
the
you.
views of Daiichi Sankyo.
I mean, mobile now is obviously so broad, so it can be a simple tiny screen where you can fit literally 140 characters on there, all the way up to iPhone or any of the Android platforms too. So sort of the different ways that you could treat that obviously are very different. On the bigger screens, it's easier to do sort of a pop-up type situation or a rollover or something that automatically sort of builds. To do it on a screen where you can do 140 characters at once, somebody would have to scroll or click through 45 messages to see probably all the ISI information. I think part of that is will be indirectly addressed next week as part of the social media hearings, where it's sort of whole piece of it is how do you sort of fit all that important safety information in the sort of tiny spaces now that we're using to communicate in social media. So it doesn't specifically address mobile, but sort of the concepts that may build out of how do you present ISI information in a paid search ad or I don't know, as a Facebook update probably still would apply to mobile as well. But there's not a really clear policy on how to do that.
I know that we were talking about SideWiki and Wikipedia earlier, and I would recommend that you go and look at the white paper that Nels put together on the right way to work on Wikipedia and edit Wikipedia entries. I think that it's a really nice outline. But I know, Eileen, you had some thoughts on...
Well, many of you in the audience know my favorite stat ever is Manhattan Research statistic that came out this year that says 50% of all physicians use Wikipedia for product information and medical information. 50%, and it's 3/4 in the EU. So physicians and consumers are looking at Wikipedia. So you should know what Wikipedia says about your brand, about your disease state, about the treatment, about your organization. And again, you can reach out to Wikipedia, you can have representatives in your organization become a representative and proclaim themselves as such and work with Wikipedia to get the facts, links to the ISI, links to the PI, link to the brand website, the factual information out there so that you have that. And again, Nault's paper also talks about using physicians to add to the discussion as well. Again, that information is out there. People are looking at it. I think it's 70% of all medical searches you do on the search engines, Wikipedia comes up on the first page. So it's an incredible tool. Love it or hate it, people are using it.
And again, I think that the transparency there is
Yes,
key. And again,
yes.
that's one of those things where at my last company, there was some detrimental information and some incorrect information published on the company's page. And initially when it went to our legal group, they said, well, that's a third party, we can't touch that. And our corporate communications group, stood up and said, no, we have to fix that. We can't leave that information out there. And again, it's that you don't want that conversation and that information going on out there without you. So as Eileen said, as long as you do it in a transparent way, I think that it is a great tool.
And also you should talk to your employees about it, because there have been some instances where employees have, in the best interests of themselves and their company, gone on and changed the information on Wikipedia. It's been tracked back to the company, public relations nightmare. So again, just share, talk about it. Don't be afraid, as Heather said.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the topics that I covered pretty extensively, or that I really am in favor of, is education for your promotional folks and your promotional review folks. I wondered if you guys could give some tips on what you have seen in pharma companies where you have a lot of social media naive people who need to get up to speed on it.
I think just bringing the laptop in and showing them and encouraging people to go home and sit with their kid and get on Facebook and get on YouTube if they're not already. From a personal perspective, get on LinkedIn, try using Twitter, so you can understand it as brand managers or as pharma people. And then the same thing, encourage med legal folks to, again, not as a representative of the company, but just to figure it out, and it's fun. So get on and try it, and then try and understand it. So a lot of it's education just in terms of what these tools are, what the possibilities are.
Yeah, I mean, your average regulatory person has a whole bunch of things to worry about, just like your average brand person does, and they're totally different. They're totally different things. So while everybody will leave here experts in all things digital, a lot of regulatory folks don't have the same sort of opportunity, and it's not necessarily that they need to know every detail, but unfortunately, a lot of where the regulatory issues come in are the little sort of details. So right away, your regulatory group may say, no, absolutely not. You cannot enable comments on your YouTube videos, but had they been more familiar with YouTube, you might know that you can actually pre-moderate the comments that are on there and take out all the ones with swearing and saying that you're the first comment and those sorts of things. Really easy. But if you're not really familiar with the tools, I wouldn't expect a regulatory person to know that any more than I would expect a brand person to know every sort of DDMAC legal regulation. But I think it's something that the marketing teams probably own as far as responsibility goes, to sort of help educate those folks. They're in a kind of an impossible situation that you're asking them to approve something they don't completely understand, and that's difficult.
Yeah, and I think Eileen mentioned to me before, we want to plug Jonathan's
Oh, right.
Dose of Digital
Yeah.
Wiki. For any
If
of
you
you
must.
who out there, we'll twist his arm. Any of you out there who don't know about it, John has assembled an amazing list of, I think you said over 500.
It's a wiki, so it's crowdsourcing. It's everybody out there in the
Sure.
industry
Yeah.
who finds a new
Yep.
site. If somebody's working on a new Facebook product brand page, they send it over to Jonathan, and it gets added to the list. So it's a great a great list of resources, very comprehensive.
Right, and you can use those again to educate your medical, legal, regulatory folks if they're not familiar with what other companies are doing, or they're uncertain about how to go about, whether it would be okay for them to approve those kinds of materials, to see
Right.
that it is being done out there in an appropriate manner.
So as a lawyer, so that's your precedent machine. So it's,
Yeah.
nobody's
Right.
ever done oh really? Well, here's 3 that have. So it's pretty comprehensive. And the thing that I noted the other day, I forget who I was talking to. Basically, if you run through that whole big giant list, and everybody's sort of very nervous about which things you can do in social media and getting in trouble and getting warning letters. Not a single thing, as far as I know, and I've ever talked to anybody, not a single thing on that list has ever gotten a warning letter, ever. So, which is
Yeah.
more than I can say about other lists that I could probably compile too at the same
Right.
time. So some of them are sort of intentionally conservative toe in the water efforts, but that's okay. A lot of those toe in the water efforts are much further than any companies have even attempted too. So toe in the water in one place is much different, but use that as sort of your proof source of we're not the only ones coming up with this crazy idea to use the social medias.